Jesus.
Unreal.
Brutal for you, if so.
By this late in the season, I should be used to it.
A little late, buddy.
The real question is Pocket Watch going to show up on YouTube for this? Because somehow I doubt it.
All right. I think we're live.
It says we're live, so yeah.
Cool. We're running it. All right. Let's do it. Three, two. All right, everybody. Another Auburn victory. It is late. Auburn hoops after dark, Ben Young, in New York City, grumbling against my unwillingness to start a podcast until the entire game is over. But Auburn beats Missouri in a game that was a lot closer than the 27-point margin until middle of the second half, really. The depth shows up again. It was weird on the road. The refs were horrific. They hit some crazy shots. It was senior night. It was late. It was weird. And we win by 27 on the road in the SEC, Ben. We'll take it.
What? Sorry, is the ref show over? Can we podcast now? Holy cow. Matt, we scored 101 points to Missouri 74. How is a game that exciting this boring? Good
Oh,
grief.
it was terrible, man. It was man, road games just get weird. I can't tell if it's just Bruce Pearl teams the way we play. We kind of we play physically, we play up and down. And it's like sometimes the refs just can't hang. And I'm not even saying they were biased. It was just the whistles were constant.
No,
The
you're right. They
review.
weren't biased. They weren't biased. And Jackson talked about this last week against Tennessee. With the refs, it just can't keep up. I mean, Missouri shot 35 free throws. We shot 29. Both teams shot well above 85% for the game, which ordinarily you would think would make me really happy. But just miserable. They interrupted the flow of the game. It was not a fun time. Let's make this one quick. Let's get into
Yeah.
MVP discussion.
Yeah, the reviews were the problem too. The reviews were terrible, but we won't linger on that. A lot of candidates, Ben. A lot of candidates for MVP. We had
Now
six.
there's two.
Well, I just want to point out six. I always track our depth of scoring. Six guys in double figures. Another guy with nine. We obviously scored the ball well. Let me guess your two. You said two. I'm gonna guess. See, I feel like there's at least three. I would
All
say
right, let me make my case for two by first stating that Jalen Williams. It's so amazing that we have him back, and he led the team in scoring. He did it in a quiet way, and he did it in such an incredibly efficient way, following the play. I don't think this was one of his better defensive games, but offensively, what more can you ask from a savvy senior who has now won 110 games for Auburn basketball than to be in the right place at the right time? He finished 6 of 8 from the floor, 5 of 5 from the free throw line. He grabbed a couple of rebounds. He blocked 2 shots. Just chef's kiss for Jalen in tonight's game. And we got to continue to talk about the evolution of Denver Jones as a two-way player. He only finished with 10 points tonight, but he was 4 of 4 from the line, 3 of 5 from the floor. So he scored all of his points without hitting a three-pointer. He also had 4 assists. So that backup point that we've been getting him has really paid dividends.
Oh, Denver. Okay, sorry. I was zoning out for a second. It's late, guys. It's late. This is gonna be a rough podcast. So you said Jalen and Denver?
No. Jalen and Denver were the first two guys that I wanted to talk about. They're not my
Okay,
two MVP
they're
candidates.
not your two. Janai and Chad Baker Mazara.
Bingo. There we go.
Okay.
This
Give
game
me.
got out of hand. This game got out of hand in the second half in a big way. And Janai was a huge factor in that. I cannot let anybody that listens to an Auburn basketball podcast take Janai Broom for granted. 3 of 5 from the line, 6 of 13 from the floor. He added 8 rebounds, 15 points. Janai Broom has had 21 10 plus point games in a row. That is the most in the entire Southeastern Conference. In a year when the
Wow.
SEC is deep, that's huge.
Wow. That's amazing. And I love it. He was a tone setter too. First possession of both halves, just throw it into him immediately, and he just bullies somebody. And I especially the game really turned to me. It was a 5 point game at halftime, and it was kind of weird. We were missing a lot of shots, and we started on a 7-0 run. thanks to that Janai bucket to start, and then we hit a couple shots, and then that we were able to kind of keep a double-digit lead the rest of the way and stretch it out. So I agree with you. Janai was terrific, and Chad Baker-Mazara got us off to a hot start shooting as well.
Well, I want to talk about when Chad Baker got his buckets because that to me is always what really matters. And that to the Jungle podcast is what always matters. Chad Baker Mazar hit our only 3-pointers in the first half. He hit 2 of them. We were 2 of 13 from deep three. Typically a recipe for Auburn to have a disaster of a night. But we went into halftime with a 5-point lead. Not great, not terrible. But, against the worst team in the SEC, you would have wanted to be up by just a little bit more. But prior to Janai Broom's late game takeover, which we're kind of used to seeing at this point, Chad Baker Mazara was tied with him in the first half with 6 rebounds. He finished with 7 for the night. He had a steal, he had a block. I mean, he was just all over the court in that first half. And to my mind, really kept this game from having Missouri possibly up at the half.
Yeah, 3 of our 8 triples too on the night. So that's huge, especially early, like you said, setting the tone on the road. 7 rebounds. Again, for a guy that isn't always the most physical, he does do a good job of rebounding and using that length to get up there and really help out on the glass. Only 1 turnover. It was really bad, but it was only 1. And he's continues to prove like Bruce is talking him up. I think everybody's around the program's hyping him up because he's shown he's the real deal. And the more he can bring it consistently night after night and contribute, and he really is growing and finding his way, which Jackson always the growth of these college basketball players, especially these guys that have come from other lower level programs, like it's fun to watch. And, I hope that as with the competition elevates, in the SEC tournament and then in the NCAA tournament, that Chad Baker-Mazar can be this kind of double-digit scorer for us.
So, Matt, I'm going to leave it to you. Those are my 2 guys. I will hear and entertain arguments for Denver and Jalen. Obviously, Jalen led us in the way in scoring, but you don't come to the Auburn basketball podcast for the box score. So if you're going to ask me to make you choose, I'm going to make you choose between Chad Baker-Mazara and Janai Broom.
If I'm choosing between those guys, it's Janai Broom. I think he impacted. I thought he was really good defensively. I thought he was great defending the rim. I think he just changes the way other teams have to play on both ends. Like he continues to just impress with his soft hands. His skill around the basket is terrific. He didn't hit his patented 3 tonight, but Jalen, I mean, you're right. Shout out to Jalen, just the quietest 17-point leading scorer ever.
I don't want to say they were quiet, but part of why they were loud was when did they come? When you saw Missouri make a shift to try to stop Janai Broom, and who did Janai Broom find crashing into that lane? But Jalen Williams, right place, right time.
Yeah, and 5 for 5 at the line, which we know Ben loves, and his backup Chaney 5 for 6. So the power forward spot was really good, really productive tonight. I'm cool with Janai though. I think anytime, like I've said before, you just never want to take Janai for granted. He's so good. He's been so consistent. I had no idea about the stat you just said about the double-digit scoring. That's wild.
Yeah, he's 21st game of the year with 10 plus points, and that is the most in the SEC. Absolutely incredible. Jackson just sent us the Reddit votes for MVP. So let me see if I can pull that up in our text message thread here. But I do want to mention one more thing. Matt, we played 10 guys tonight. All 10 guys scored. How impressive is that?
And 9 in the first half, which I think, at times Trey was the only guy who didn't score in the first half. So the depth continues to be great. I've heard a lot. The best thing that an 11-man rotation gives you is that when somebody goes down with an injury, which we hate it for Lior, the confirmed ACL out for the year, brutal, but hopefully it's just an ACL, it's nothing else. So hopefully he'll be able to get back to try to play professionally next year. I think that sounds like the goal. But having 10 guys who can play, and now our lineup is very set. I mean, we have 2 guys at 1 through 5, and I think we know our rotations. We know that CBM's starting. Chris Moore is going to be the backup at the 3. There is a lot of role definition on this team now. And you're right, the depth of scoring continues to be, that's the story to me. And when you get, let me total it up real quick from the guys that I would consider our non-scorers. When you get 26 points from Chris Moore, Dylan Cardwell, and Chaney Johnson in limited minutes, Chaney Johnson, that's a winning formula right there. And 48 to 22 35 to 19 bench points continues to just be so impressive. And the best stat, by the way, I actually, There's no way we only had 16 assists tonight. We were moving the ball so well, not the whole game, but at points we were just moving the ball
Oh,
on all
Matt,
cylinders.
let's not get ahead of ourselves here because you're right. We did move the ball well, but we also like tonight was our best fast break night by a long shot.
Mm, mm.
So if we go to Reddit here, we've got ACM0028. Feels like Dylan should get some love. Limited minutes and played great, 100% from the field. And we're going to spare the rest of that comment for you. So we got to vote for Dylan there. Ribs and Whiskey, always on the Reddit poll. He wants to vote for J Will. 17 points, 2 blocks, 5 of 5 from 3 on 1.5 knees. I mean, we can't talk enough about how important Jalen Williams is as his team. And then we have Silver Sound spelled with numbers, also voting Cardwell. And then when we go to the YouTube chat here, we got Chris Thomas saying Jalen for MVP if you value efficiency. Steve Hendrickson, once again, we got another vote for Dylan in there. So we got to shout out Dylan Cardwell. Uh, Stephen also reminding us Auburn shot 66.9% from 3 in the second half.
Mm.
Incredible stuff. And then Chris Thomas is kind of in my court here. I love it when we run the CBM Janai Broom ball screen action. Best coaching change that we made. Can't agree more. We're continuing to see Janai as an assist weapon being such a huge part of this team.
And there were multiple times too where I remember Chad Baker Mazara specifically just the quick, easy dump in pass. Like, don't overthink
Oh
it.
yeah.
Don't overthink it. Use it. And the whole team is like really seems to be centering on how good of a weapon that is and like trusting it, which is so good to see. I mean, look, Jalen is terrific. Dylan, the only argument against Dylan would be the Ben Young argument of when did those come? A lot of that came late when Missouri was gassed and pretty much dead. But hey, when you score 12, have 12 and 6 in 16 minutes and you don't miss a shot from the field, you're doing something right. And he did have 3 turnovers and he did have 4 fouls, but Dylan was terrific. And we love to see, I mean, hitting a three to go over 100 points, like you said, I mean, just doesn't get much better than that. And on the road, especially like in the SEC, it's an awesome thing. I don't know if you heard at the end, but Missouri, most points they had given up all year at home was 91. Most points in any game was 97. So hey, we put up some numbers tonight.
Yeah, and for sure. Dylan Cardwell, give him his roses. The Jungle Auburn podcast gave him his roses early in the season. He won 2 outright MVPs
He did.
with a similar stat line. He definitely bullied up Missouri a little bit. Jackson would say they just didn't have the horses to compete with us. Um, and I think we've got to give it to our man. Big number 4. Appreciate him while you've got him. Janai Broom, MVP of Auburn versus Missouri.
Love it. Love it. So, um, what do we
Let's
want to
talk
do?
about Chris Moore. Let's talk about Chris Moore. Chris Moore scored some points for us tonight. He
Yep.
looked a little bit more comfortable in the flow of the offense. I think maybe getting a couple of weeks off as a player definitely helped him. What did you think about that?
Well, Bruce pretty much admitted this week that it was just a lack of confidence offensively, which anybody could see. Everybody loves Chris Moore. He's the vocal leader. Clearly, he's a veteran guy on this team, and now he is kind of pushed into duty. I think it was a good start to wipe the slate clean. And the thing is, they were the way you want Chris Moore to contribute. They were offensive rebounds, gritty, hustle, great communication defensively. It was these little. He forced a turnover. I remember one specific on defense. He's closing out to the perimeter and then closing out, and when the guy cuts behind him, he was right with him in his hip pocket, forced a turnover. Those are the kind of things we want to see Chris Moore doing. I think his size is going to help us at times at the 3 as a backup for CBM, and great to see him hit a couple tough putbacks. He could have honestly, it looked like he could have gotten an and one on a couple of them. The 2 he made, he had 4 points, 3 rebounds. But good to see him finish through contact. And honestly, as
Oh
we've
yeah.
seen so many years, the refs won't give you calls if they don't think you think you're going to score. And I think it was just one of those things. But great to see him contribute. Good to see him be part of the flow of everything, and hopefully that continues.
Yeah, I mean, this Auburn basketball team continues to just be a Moneyball team. We've got a bunch of guys that are doing their job, and they're
Yep.
continuing to do their job and accelerate late into the year. I mean, Matt, these numbers have been holding pretty consistent all year. We are ninth nationally in assists per game at 18.7 assists per game, so nearly 19 assists per game. And that's now holding over the course of what are we at? 29 games, 28 games, something like that.
Yeah, 29, I think. Or 30
And we are
maybe.
fifth nationally in opponent shooting percentage. We are holding opponents to 38% from the whole
Yeah.
field.
That's
and
amazing.
that really showed up in the second half. In the second half tonight, Auburn was 16 of 20 from the field when I stopped watching, and Missouri was 7 of 25.
Yeah.
So you want to
No,
talk about efficiency and how you bury a team. That's how you do it right there. We did it 2 points at a time. It was incredible basketball.
I don't think that's getting enough credit. I mean, 351 teams in Division One, and we're fifth in the probably the most important stat out there of what does a team shoot against your defense. I mean, like that. There's not many things more important than that, and that's why our defensive efficiency numbers are through the roof. And that's what you can lean on. First half I thought Missouri hit some weird buzzer beating fault like fully guarded threes that when
Baker
those
for them
happen
was incredible.
yeah, you start to get nervous, when stuff like that starts happening on senior night and weird stuff. But I mean, the consistency with which we played defense, and it really did wear them down. I think they showed a graphic of the bench points. We know we're also high in bench points. They are not. Missouri's not very deep at all. And one of their guys had 3 fouls in the first half, so they were scrambling a bit. And we
Matt,
really
did you look at the bench points differential tonight?
35-19. Already mentioned it.
35-19. And then
Yeah,
look at the paint points.
yeah.
That is another stat that just absolutely roasted them. 48 to 22.
I have to pause when we talk about points in the paint. Have you ever, like, when's the last time you saw a guy play like Mr. East for Missouri? He's literally just doing a one man dribble attack. And I thought our guards, who are smaller than him, all of them, did a really good job of staying in front and making it tough on him. That was an interesting thing to watch.
The amount of times East got away with that low bar push off was
Yeah.
incredible to me, particularly in the second half. I mean, that's why it's nearly midnight on the East Coast and we're still
He,
doing this
he
freaking
was 4 of
podcast.
17, but he got to the line. He had 13 free throws because he just kept bullying, but he was 4 for 17.
I mean, just an incredible defense. I mean, again, you saw a moment where Trey Donaldson put a hand up and watched this guy drive into his fully extended, unmoving hand. What can you do there? If the referees are going to call that, you're just going to have to live with that.
I think one of the biggest things we haven't mentioned is the second chance points. In the first half, people were getting frustrated because we were missing a lot of shots, which I think people need to understand. When we score 44 on the road in a half, and we're complaining about the balls and on the road, like we're not hitting anything. Like it's just crazy how much this team has elevated our expectations sometimes. But the way we stayed in it in the first half were a ton of offensive rebounds and converting those into points when we missed the shot. So sometimes you got to win that way, especially on the road and when the shots aren't falling. You mentioned the second half they got a lot better, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Chris Moore, our bigs. Like a lot of people got involved in the offensive glass tonight.
And I think that's why you have to give the MVP to Janai Broom. I mean, Janai Broom was not just incredible in his one-on-one when we got him isolated, but he was incredible in being ready and able for those putback opportunities. It just made all the difference in the world.
I want to
Wait,
talk about
Matt, we've got Trent Ponder in the chat saying, "Hold up, we've got to go and we've got to review a play." So
no,
give me a
we're
moment
not
here. We got to
reviewing
go. We got to go
anything.
to the monitor.
We are not going to the monitor tonight. I barely got Ben on this podcast. So our point guards. Trey tweaked an ankle. Looks like he's fine. That made me nervous. But 7 assists, 0 turnovers. Ben 7. Like been the formula this year. When those guys are taking care of the ball, and I thought Aiden was just terrific. Terrific. 5 assists for him.
Aiden put in a masterpiece tonight. He's exactly the performance that you want. And Matt, I'm beginning to buy in more and more to what you've been saying on this podcast for the last couple of weeks. We're going to need Aiden to be a guy to hit shots. Now, we don't need Aiden to necessarily be a guy that's going to hit shots early in the game, like we saw him do against Texas A&M, like we saw him do early in SEC play. But how much of a backbreaker is it when a team is going on a run in the second half and finally gets it down to single digits? It's an 8-point game and it's been 10 to 12 lead the whole second half. Then Aiden Holloway comes down the floor, a guy who hasn't scored, and buries a 3-pointer in your face. What do you do at that point? Because now
Oh,
you've added one more weapon to the floor you've got to guard.
absolutely. And we know that's always been kind of a threat from a lot of our guards. And I'm not saying I want him to shoot that all the time. And I thought tonight was a masterclass, like you said, in what Jackson's been wanting, right? Is to run the offense and take your shots when they're there. He showed a nice mid-range floater. He showed a good long two when somebody closed out hard on him at the 3-point line, and then he hit a three. And it just again, now it's Missouri. We acknowledge that maybe Chris Moore's contributions, maybe how well Aiden looked in the open court, maybe Missouri has some things to do with that. but we'll take it for guys who need some confidence building going into this last part. And I thought he was really good, and I'm really glad Trey's okay too. That made me nervous because I love Aiden as much as anybody, but you just can't deny that it's really valuable having both of those guys. And Trey hit a couple threes to maybe knock some of his rust off, hopefully. And again, when he's not turning the ball over and he's doing all the little things, I think at the point guard position are so important. And I was really impressed, especially with Aiden as a freshman, how well he stood up to some of the physical downhill drives of the Missouri guards. It really was. He's gotten a lot better at that this year.
I mean, especially on a night when you have Katie Johnson foul out with almost 5 minutes to go in the game. If you need Denver Jones to play some point guard minutes and Katie Johnson is fouled out, you're in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're seeing Aiden's footwork evolve a lot better. And tonight, we kept Janai in the hole a lot to play a little bit of help defense. And particularly late in the game, that seemed to be really effective. The two of them really trust each other, with Aiden taking away the primary shot look from whoever has driven him into the lane and trusting that, all right, if they fake, Janai is going to be there. So I'm going to stay and I'm going to say, you're not going to get your first look. I'm going to make you go to that second look. We got Trent Ponder in the chat and Mr. Beautiful both saying they thought Aiden looked good tonight. So Matt, you're not alone in feeling like he looked better.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. And again, we just got to hope it continues. He looks like he was having fun tonight. And he made some really nice passes that led to points. He ran the offense well. He hit a couple shots. Like, that's what we want to see. Hit a couple free throws. And again, that 0 spot from a freshman turnover, that especially on the road in a game like this that's dangerous, this, we just can't beat ourselves. And I thought Auburn did a really good job of not beating ourselves tonight. Sure, we turned it over 11 times. It's not a great number for this team, but it's fine. And I just thought everybody did a really good job. And it was a good performance on a quick turnaround. We played Saturday. I think they went to Missouri on Monday, yesterday.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just a quick turnaround in a late game, senior night for Missouri. I was impressed. It wasn't a sellout or anything, but they're 0-16 in the league, and I mean they were there, and there were some people
Yeah, their
supporting
crowd
them.
got loud.
Yeah, so shout out to Missouri. They do have a strong basketball tradition. If you go back, quite a bit.
Folks, if this podcast continues to do well next year, we may have a WhatsApp group where you get to be in on the wonderful panic of our group chats, both leading into and during the game. Maybe we'll make that an opportunity for the public to get in on. But this was a game that, especially Jackson, if he was here, he would say trap game. We made it out. We survived. We survived the trap game.
And
we
haven't talked about what else happened tonight, Ben. What else?
I think it's time. I think it's time to start looking ahead. We can put this game behind us. We beat the worst team in the league. Bully for us. Let's talk about what's next, Matt.
Well, I want to talk about Florida beating the crap out of Alabama tonight, which if you were on our text chain, you would know that we've been big time debating whether we should even be considering the scenarios. This is partially my podcast. We're going to talk about all the championship scenarios as long as we can. And tonight we didn't have to have Alabama win, but as you told me earlier today, 0 chance Arkansas goes in and beats Alabama. That made today's result of Alabama losing to Florida even bigger. We're now tied with them. And the dream of the 5-way tie SEC title is still alive and well. The key game, the only game tomorrow that's actually important for that, is South Carolina hosting Tennessee at home. We need the Gamecocks to pull out a win. And then, if that happens, we're playing potentially for a title on Saturday, if everything goes right.
Well, Matt, you being the guy who is all about the mathematical possibilities, as long as they're non-zero, we're going to talk about them. It's not the only game that matters. Kentucky does play against Vanderbilt tomorrow, and I believe it is in Nashville. Vanderbilt's another one of those teams who's going to have nothing to play for. It's going to be all amped up. It's going to be senior night for the Commodores. Maybe they can shock the world. Somehow I doubt it. But that game does matter, because if Kentucky loses that game, things become a lot more interesting. But here's the exciting part for us no matter what. Now that Alabama has lost to Florida and Florida lost to South Carolina the previous week, pretty much any result from the Tennessee-South Carolina game is beneficial to us. Yes. Obviously, we want to stay in the title race for as long as we can. So if South Carolina wins that game, regardless of what happens in the Kentucky game, mathematically, we're still in there, right? Now, Arkansas could go into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama, and then it becomes a 4-way tie. But let's assume logic holds and Alabama beats Arkansas. Now, let's hope that Kentucky beats Vanderbilt, and then continues that hot momentum, scoring 100 points at more times than any other team in the SEC. And they take that into Knoxville and they beat Tennessee on senior night. We're looking at a 5-way tie. But
So
if somehow Tennessee beats South Carolina tomorrow, a couple of good things still happen.
yeah,
Maybe not in Matt's world, but in most of the Auburn basketball world. Number
yeah,
one, Alabama is denied an outright SEC championship.
correct, correct.
They still have the potential to tie if Tennessee loses to Kentucky. But more importantly than that, Auburn continues
Wait,
to
no,
move
no,
up.
no. Tennessee wins outright if they win tomorrow.
Is that right? I
Yes.
think if they lose to Kentucky,
No,
they
they
no,
have
no,
a
that's
two
right.
game
Alabama
lead.
picked to their fifth loss.
Yes.
Tennessee wins outright tomorrow. Alabama gets no share of the championship. Thank you for that correction, Matt. But if that happens, we hold a head to head win over South Carolina, and we have a better record against the top teams, which will be us, South Carolina, and Tennessee, than Alabama does, because Alabama has lost to Tennessee twice. We've only lost to them once, which moves Auburn up to the 3 seed, assuming that Kentucky does not beat South Carolina or Tennessee in that final week.
Yeah, well,
So
it's
things
gonna
can get
get weird. It's gonna get weird on Saturday, especially like I said. And tomorrow, you're right. We debated maybe doing a pod tomorrow instead of tonight. Um, the more I was like, well, it's really that one game will dictate a lot because you're right. If Tennessee could have had it won, I think that's likely tomorrow. But if they don't, and now I did see, I went ahead and looked at the times on Saturday. All the things we need are before our game. We are the last game, so
oh boy
um, we would need South Carolina to lose to Mississippi State on the road on Saturday, which
in Stark Vegas.
in Starkville, and then at 3 o'clock, Tennessee's hosting Kentucky. But if all that happened, I'm gonna be in Neville Arena watching my Tigers play Georgia for a chance to get a banner. And I doubt all of this is gonna happen. Don't make fun of me. Don't judge me. But we made it to the last week of the season with a chance to win a title. We're going to go to Nashville trying to win an SEC tournament title next week. It's the fun time of year. I want to embrace it. Like again, we haven't been in this place for most of our
Listen,
lives.
this is the Matt system equivalent of being down only 3 at the final timeout in under a minute. Yes, you have a mountain to climb, but there's a mountain in front of you, and all you got to do is climb to the top of it. So
There's
we've got
only
to take care of business.
we're down to 3 games. That's really all it is for the title. You're absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that. The double bye is obviously the main focus for us. I think at this point, we want to get the double bye. We want to improve seeding. We want to keep our momentum, keep winning. But all I'm saying is, like, if tomorrow goes our way somehow and Tennessee loses on the road at South Carolina, it's 2 results is all we need. I mean, it's not as crazy as people were making it seem the other day because we've had a couple things happen. So, I
Well, it's
mean,
2 results tomorrow, and then it's one more result
no, it's one
on the
result.
following, or two more results on the following Saturday. We've got to win, and
Well,
Kentucky's
sure.
got to win.
It's assuming we have to win, but
Right.
it's one game tomorrow that we have to watch that's outside of our control, and then 2 on Saturday before we play. And
Exactly.
I,
But
I
I
doubt we'll
think
get there, but we'll see.
I think, and I could be wrong because it's late. We just hit midnight here on the East Coast, but I believe our final results now, having made it past this last road hurdle, and assuming we can beat Georgia at home, are either double bye or SEC champions, and that is a sweet position to be in.
Yeah, if we win, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
if we win, but that is in our control, and
it
that's all
seems
we've
that
asked to be
way.
in.
I haven't seen confirmation that that's fully true, but I just believe with all the results, I don't know how. I'm trusting you and Ryan on the tiebreakers a little bit. I think that's true, and I think we pretty much have a double bye if we win. But we'll learn more about that tomorrow on Twitter, I'm sure.
Yeah, the thing that helps us is that if Kentucky wins out, they're going to knock. Or, sorry, if Tennessee wins out, they're going to knock Kentucky back, who owns a single tiebreaker over us.
Right.
Florida, by losing to South Carolina, is already too far back. So
Yeah.
if we
Right.
finish with 5 losses, we stay ahead of them no matter what. If Kentucky can't win out, we stay ahead of them no matter what. But if Tennessee loses to them, that gets us into a little bit more challenging situation where we may not quite get to a top 4 seed. but we will be SEC regular season champions.
But see, I think we do get we come out number 4 in the 5 team. I think we get the double bye.
That I don't know. I think that depends on whether or not South Carolina loses to Mississippi State, because
I
South Carolina, it
well,
starts,
yeah,
you
yes.
you cascade when you have a tiebreaker, you cascade down from the top seed, which in that case I still believe would be Tennessee.
No,
And
see,
South
I don't
Carolina
think
has
they do that.
beaten Tennessee twice.
I don't think it cascades. I think it's the total. Now, I'm trusting Storm and Norman here. I'm quoting him hard. So what he sent to our group chat looked really legitimate, and I'm putting a lot of faith in it. I believe it is the group results against each other of the tie. So like how we did against the other 4 teams versus how everybody else did against the other 4 teams, and I believe we came out fourth in that. And the
Okay.
best thing, if this happened, I believe Alabama came out fifth. So
I
they
think
would.
that's right. Because
So
Alabama would have lost to Kentucky at least once. They've lost to Tennessee twice. They've lost to us once, and they've lost to South Carolina once.
there you go. So I mean, look, it's probably not going to happen. The main thing is we win. You're right. If the worst case scenario, we get a double bye, and Ben 13 and I mean we're 12-5 in the league, so we guarantee 12-5. You called 13-5 at the beginning of the year, right?
No, I called 14-4, so
Okay.
I whiffed on that, but that was me being the homer. So 13-5, I am thrilled with.
If we beat Georgia on Senior Day, close out the season with a win, you just don't worry about all the other stuff. I mean, look, I'm trying to create scenarios for us to win championships as much as possible, but like it's a great year, and the team has been fun to watch, and we're in March, and I think there's just a lot to be excited about with how this team's playing, and we've shown that ceiling. Like the metrics love us. We're really good on defense. Our offense has shown a lot of capability, and it becomes about matchups. And can we get some of those SEC tournament demons out of our system? Can we get to the Sweet 16? I really believe like that's kind of the barometer for this team. I think that's a good goal.
And don't overlook some of the struggles that other top teams have had at Mizzou. I believe Tennessee won by only 1 or 2 possessions in Columbia
Correct.
earlier
Correct.
this year. So again, don't take it for granted that we went in there and absolutely took care of business. And we did it by leaning on our best players, but we also did it as a team. We had all 10 guys that we put on that floor score buckets tonight. We scored 100 points on the road.
Fourth time we scored 100, most since 93-94.
This is the ninth time we've scored 90 plus this year. What an
Wow.
incredible stat.
It's crazy, man. We're scoring well. I think we feel good about our 10-man rotation as good as we can. We're, knock on wood, we're pretty healthy. I mean, hate it for Leor, but our 10-man rotation is pretty healthy. And we have some dudes. I mean, we really do have some dudes. The guard play is going to be key. We got to get good guard play to go along with our front court, but we know that at this point. We just got to, our staff is doing a great job with these scouts and matchups. And I think that's one of our big advantages that I hope to see play out like in March, right? When we go into our little pod and we have to scout 3 teams, the first round you're playing, and then you scout both of the teams on the other side. I really trust our staff to put together good plans for whoever we end up playing if we can advance out of that first round. And second weekend we've only been there once with Bruce, and that was the Final 4 years. So I really kind of think that would be a big step forward for us for perception, and also just man, fun
And
stuff.
winning in the SEC tournament.
Well, yes, we don't we would
I
like
can't
to
let
do
that
that
go. I can't let that go.
as a Nashvilleian. Please, Auburn, can we win a couple games? Can we win a game? If we get a double bye, can we get to the semifinals at least and try to have fun anyway?
Yeah. So look, podcast universe. Matt is going to be at the game live on Saturday. I believe Storm and Norman is going to be as well. So hopefully Jackson and I can get a pod together. But be on the lookout. We are going to do an SEC tournament preview episode, and we're also going to do a selection Sunday SEC or NCAA tournament preview.
Yep.
Hopefully, we'll be able to touch base with the guys from Falling Out. Maybe talk a little bit more big picture. Hopefully, we won't have to see Tennessee before the Final Four, if that's the
Shout
case.
out. Yeah, yes. That's a great plan. And honestly, the best plan is Tennessee gets in and somehow loses and still doesn't make a Final Four. And I would love it if they only made the Sweet 16. Like they've only made the Elite Eight once ever, and that was with Bruce. So I love that stat. I want that to keep going. They look really good. Shout out to Tennessee for doing the Lord's work, in Tuscaloosa the other night. And you're right, we are tied with Alabama now, and they are 2 games back, and they're in the same boat as us, and a worse boat potentially if we win, and depending on the tiebreakers. So
Well, I
Um,
got bad news for you. Greg Byrne is part of the selection committee, so
well,
we'll see how that turns out.
yeah, it's true. Any other I'm trying to think. I mean, I think we covered it. This was a good Denver Jones, by the way, continues to just be so good. 4 assists, 1 turnover. Great
Oh,
D.
we talked about Denver. Denver was in that first group.
I just love
This
what Denver's doing. And Cheney's looking more comfortable, confident, 10-6 for him. Um,
this was Cheney's worst game of the last four, but I don't think that had anything to do with his play. I think he took good looks all night. I thought he played a great game. He just, they don't fall on the road sometimes. You got to deal with that.
yeah, for sure. Well, Ben, we at the Jungle, all the listeners appreciate you. This was a brutal East Coast 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock tip for the East Coast people. It was like I mean, it's so late. The SEC refs, please give us a reprieve. Stop this madness. Somebody needs to be able to press a button and be like, we're done. We're playing street ball the rest of the game. No fouls. Auburn's up by 32. Can we just
NBA
calm
Jam
down?
rules.
Can we just
NBA
calm
Jam
down
rules.
with the freaking whistles? Um,
Or stop going to like review stuff. Just be like, you know what? That's what we called on the floor. Deal with it.
I also
Nobody's
have to
going to
give
complain.
a shout out to Katie Johnson's behind the back bounce pass to the corner to who was that? Was that
It
Trey
was
or
Trey Donaldson
oh
for
yeah.
three.
Yeah. Rock yeah,
Even the
you're
announcers are like, Trey Donaldson, you have to make that shot. You can't miss that one because it
yeah,
was
you
too
gotta make
beautiful
that.
of a pass.
That's a
Uh,
classic KD moment. That was great.
we're gonna get out of here before we gush too much on a great win. But Matt, we've got a request from Jackson who couldn't bother to get himself awake for this podcast, but is still blowing us up.
He's
He
working
wants
allegedly at 12:08 in the
he
morning.
wants Matt and Storm and live content from Toomer's Corner. If we win Saturday, and if we win a championship, can the
Oh,
listeners find you on live?
that's a bet. I'll do that easy. If we win and we win a title, I'm down. So
All right,
you heard
War
it
Eagle,
here
Matt.
first. War Eagle.
Uh,
I'll
you
do
get
that like your bet for getting me a jersey.
yes, but that's only if Arkansas goes into Tuscaloosa and wins.
I
Which,
know. Hey,
if they do, 100%. By the way, I reached out to Jalen's mom on Instagram and said we need to get one of those Jalen shirts,
for
and she
sure.
gave it a little heart. So if you want me to push for getting you a Jalen shirt, I'll see what I
See,
can do.
I meant to get ahead. I wanted to have one already and buy it, and then just wear like I wanted to have it at the game for
Well,
Jalen's senior night.
she got them custom printed. So let me message
Uh,
her tomorrow and just be like, hey, we will 100% pay for one of those shirts. We'll pay to have like we're Matt's coming to the game, and he's Jalen's number one fan.
it'd be a great photo, honestly, for the pod. Like me and a
Yes,
Jalen, the
yes,
airbrush.
and if we can get him to sign it after the game is over.
That
All right, I'll reach out. I'll reach out. I'll see what we can do
would be
because
good, man.
she came on the live. We ran into her in
That's
Brooklyn.
right. That's right.
Yeah,
Brooklyn.
so she knows. She knows.
She knows the deal. Anyway, hey.